Hi, Malin. You have it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Maybe you can make the window a little longer so it fits on it, so it fits a page.
Here. Look at that. Is that all of it?
I think it's going to need to be longer. This is because this page is doesn't have as much text on it on the right.
Do you mean when you say longer, do you mean wider or higher?
Longer, wider would be wider. Longer is longer this way. I think you can move that window up, maybe.
No, it's at the top.
It's at the top, okay. And it's at the bottom?
How's that?
It doesn't look any different to me, but that's fine.
Okay. So it's Ed, Kim, Malin, and Peg.
Okay.
All right. I was just trying to make it a little bigger for my eyes. Here we go. I got it.
Oh, okay.
Um, ordinary mind is the way. Peg. In July, Ben flew to Portland to meet me for the drive home down the sun-drenched coast of California to visit my friends in San Diego, then head east to Austin. It was an entirely different experience than the blizzards in the mountains in January. It was wonderful to be back in Austin with Sangha members and friends. I began to thaw out. I returned to campus and my academic life of teaching and administration. I moved out of AZC and back into my house, which, with its 3 bedrooms, seemed enormous after my monastery cubicle. Living by myself in such a large space seemed so wasteful, so self-indulgent. One morning I woke up with the realization, if I moved furniture from the spacious living room and dining room into the main bedroom and turned Ben's room into my bedroom, I could create a Zendo for the Live Oak Zen group. We would have our own space, never again at the mercy of other schedules. There would be ample room to grow. Our little group painted the new Zendo together, and the Sangha moved in September 5th, 2005, 4 years after 9/11 and 1 year after I had been ordained.
Joko had told me she had decided to create the Ordinary Mind School with her Dharma errors. Now, I asked if it would be okay to call our Sangha Ordinary Mind Austin, and she liked the idea. So did the Sangha.
You have to move up the page.
I'm sorry, what?
You have to move forward on the page. Next page.
I did.
No, not on the
Study how
the screen share is still the former page.
Yeah, on the screen it's just showing the last 2 lines about Joko had told me.
asked if it would be okay to call our.
No, you're not showing the page. On this, can you see the screen share? It's not showing there. It's not.
I'll
It,
share again.
it didn't advance the page.
Right.
Yeah, there we go.
Meanwhile, I was studying how to set up as a nonprofit with the state and the IRS. I wanted people to be able to make a tax contribution deduction for their contributions. Since we couldn't afford a lawyer, I was working my way through the welter of government regulations and publications, navigating their complex websites and learning more than I ever expected to about tax law and exempt organizations. By October 2005, we were officially incorporated as a 501c3 religious nonprofit. Live Oak Zen Group had officially become Ordinary Mind Austin, to the delight of our tiny Sangha. Contributions at the time were averaging $35 a month, just about enough to cover candles, flowers, and incense.
When I told Flynn I was figuring out how to officially apply for non-profit status for my little sitting group, he was alarmed. You can't just set up another Sangha while you are a priest here at AZZ. I was startled by his reaction. I'm not setting up anything, I replied, baffled. This group has been together for 10 years. They faithfully continued in Joko's way, even when I started spending all my time here, even when I've been away for conferences and on leave, and even when I ordained here and went away to the monastery for 6 months. This is nothing new. I've always fostered their dedicated practice. They have persistently declined to join AZZ, even though I have encouraged them to do so. I have to go on supporting their sincere aspiration. He seemed to accept this, but I could see he was still unsettled. And with good reason, because things were about to take a dramatic turn. But first, some reflections on the importance of place that I realized much later. Into short Dharma talks.
Sorry.
A dedicated space makes everything possible. The places where Zen has taken root in this country have been radically diverse and democratic, unlike the institutionalized forms of Zen in Japan, for example. While most people are familiar with the large Zen centers in this country that were established on the Japanese Zen or Chinese Chan models, the surprising vitality of Zen here in the West has emerged out of small, informal groups meeting for meditation, talks, and fellowship. Sometimes these groups have an authorized teacher, but just as often, sanghas are drawn together to practice, study, and support each other on the Buddhist path. Members might go to study, excuse me, members might go to study with teachers at a Zen center for a session or a practice period. There may be opportunities for the group to work with teachers online, and so on. Sitting groups meet in libraries, bookstores, churches, yoga studios, parks, and individual homes all over the country.
I lost my place here. Hang on.
Oh, I'm lost my place too.
You've gone too far. That's why. There we go.
There it is. Okay. Appamada began as Live Oak Zen Group in a side room of a Unitarian church, moved to a yoga studio, and finally to a formal Zen center during off hours. Through all of the changes and inconveniences of using borrowed spaces, the Sangha members continued to sit, demonstrating a genuine commitment to this path. But we were very limited in what we could offer in borrowed spaces. We were always at the mercy of our host schedule and activities. We could not establish a daily Zazen offering, intensives, or ceremonies because of limitations on the time and space we could count on. We could not offer classes, study groups, or inquiry as we do now. Moving the Sangha into my house turned out to be a catalyst for the Sangha's evolution. I am convinced now that a dedicated home makes everything possible and transforms the Sangha from a band of occasional acquaintances to a profoundly connected, dynamic organism. The place turned out to be uniquely suited for the deepening of our practice and our relational work that has woven a fabric of mutual development, practice, and care.
Because we could offer daily Zazen weekday mornings, in addition to our Sunday program, Sangha members could train in roles and practice them. Where once I simply came and rang bells for Zazen and clappers for Kinhin, now new people could be monitors, timekeepers, jishas. Because we now had a dedicated altar, people could learn to Chiden and arrange flowers for the Zendo. We could read the
Go on.
4. The world honored one points to the ground. As soon as a single mote of dust arises, the whole earth is contained therein. With a single horse and a single lance, the lands extended. Who is this person who can be master in any place and meet the source in everything? The case. As the world-honored one was walking with the congregation, he pointed to the ground with his finger and said, "This spot is good to build a sanctuary." Indra, emperor of the gods, took a blade of grass, stuck it in the ground, and said, "The sanctuary is built." The world-honored one smiled. I love that one.
Yeah.
Right. I think you might have to raise the page a little bit to get that last paragraph. Yeah, there we go.
Is it in because? No.
Yes,
Because we could offer daily zazen weekday mornings.
the paragraph after that, because we had a study.
Okay. Because we had a study, we could make Buddhist books available for loan, and because we had an office, we could manage some administration of the Sangha, a website, a bookkeeping program, community groups, email lists, event registration, and archives of talks, classes, meetings. Because we have a kitchen and space, we could offer intensives in our own schedule. The Zendo was large enough to host classes and public inquiry.
As the offerings grew, so did the opportunities for Sangha members to take on new roles and responsibilities in support of the Sangha. And so the Sangha could deepen and mature in experience and training. Meanwhile, experienced Zen students committed to the Sangha were emerging as leaders, and we have had a place to meet with them weekly and to work with them in retreats and training. Appamada does not have priests or residents. Councils described below are small groups of experienced students who share their practice deeply as spiritual friends and who also share responsibility for supporting the Sangha and maintaining the space.
Ultimately, then, we built the little house in back of the main house where Flint could see clients and prepare for classes and other teachings. Later, when Flint moved, I lived there. Now it is rented to a Sangha member. It has a kitchen that we have used for cooking during intensives, then serving meals in the main house. And it has a generous wraparound porch where people can sit and talk. Through a generous bequest, we were able to landscape the grounds, creating an inviting urban oasis that is serene and lush. None of these things could have been possible without a dedicated space. Whether you have the good fortune to have a home that can be transformed in this way, or whether you rent a space or find a way to buy or build a place for the Sangha to grow, the importance of place cannot be overstated.
Furthermore, the design, decor, and maintenance of the place provides an opportunity to express Zen aesthetic principles and teachings about the mindful care of a space, and leaving no trace. Zen spaces, forms, and practices. We don't talk explicitly about the different orientation we take to the spaces and situation we encounter in a Zen center like Appamada. It is a function always of the evolution and maturing of the Sangha. what is evoked in the container we provide together for this practice. With each change of place for the Sangha, a change of forms was necessary to accommodate the place and the number of people. When we moved here, I was finally able to adopt some of the forms and practices that Joko used. The space was finally ours. The Sangha began to mature in a wonderful way.
As it matures, the necessary forms and practices to support our work together also are emergent. They are neither simply imported from traditional Japanese Zen centers, nor are they just made up. They are a response to the needs of the Sangha in our encounter with Zen practice. Flint and I reflect together quite often about what is needed and what will benefit our Sangha on our path together. And the teachings include the ways that we understand our relationship with each space and situation. Most of us easily and automatically learn how to orient ourselves and navigate our habitual situations. A grocery store, a restaurant, a birthday party. But this situation is different, and we may need a bit of guidance or even a reminder about how to move through it appropriately.
When we enter the Zendo, for example, we make a bow. This bow is a kind of greeting for the room and an acknowledgement that this is not a casual place, a coffee shop or a dentist's office, or a room in someone's home. It is a place for the practice of Zazen. As we take our own practice path seriously, it expresses respect for what we are about to undertake, a courageously direct and immediate encounter with our lives in a container of silence, still together with others. We bow toward our seat and then turn clockwise and bow toward the room, rather than simply flinging ourselves onto a cushion. This is a tiny ceremony that recognizes and celebrates the reality that we are sitting as Buddha, not to try to become a Buddha. By moving our bodies in these mindful and somewhat formal ways, we call our own attention to our aspiration and our connection to each other into this path, and we orient ourselves in time and space, this moment, right now.
And Ed, you want to read the Dogen?
Oh, sure. Here we go. When you find your place where you are, practice occurs, actualizing the fundamental point. When you find your way at this moment, practice occurs, actualizing the fundamental point. For the place, the way, is neither large nor small, neither yours nor others. The place, the way, has not carried over from the past, and it is not merely arising now. Accordingly, in the practice enlightenment of the Buddha way, meeting one thing is mastering it. Doing one practice is practicing completely. Here is the place, here the way unfolds. The boundary of realization is not distinct, for the realization comes forth simultaneously with the mastery of Buddha Dharma. Do not suppose that what you realize becomes your knowledge and is grasped by your consciousness. Although actualized immediately, the inconceivable may not be apparent. Its appearance is beyond your knowledge. Ihe Dogen. Jokuan.
At the end of Zazen, we chant, hearing the sounds we make together and feeling the words enter our bodies. And then we do 3 bows. These 3 bows carry meanings you can only know in your body, and you may never be able to express them in words, but they are very important, not just the last thing you have to do before you leave. In the Zendo, we do not chant or make casual conversation. Instead, we straighten our cushions and then move to another space to study, the kitchen or the deck, for those kinds of warm, friendly connections. In those spaces, we recognize difference and orient ourselves naturally to discussion. We recognize a difference and orient ourselves naturally to discussion or typical social interactions.
When we are in classes, the room takes on a different quality. We come with a different intention and we organize ourselves in ways appropriate to that function, on learning together and interacting as students. In an inquiry, the room is arranged in still a different way, and we organize ourselves physically and psychologically for the encounter. Unlike a class, we sit in silence, but unlike Zazen, we are focused in the encounter of two people holding the space and witnessing with support and compassion.
Usually, we don't need to be told how to navigate these different situations. Mostly, just like in any unfamiliar situation, we get our cues from watching others, hoping that we are not watching someone as new or clueless as we are. As we do this, our expression of the forms becomes more refined and more natural. After a while, the different forms begin to make sense. There's a foundational reason for every single one. That reason doesn't come from a traditional Japanese template, nor is it just fabricated. It is both a responsive and an expressive function. It responds to a situation as a whole complex that includes Zen students, a particular architecture, movement and traffic, timing, teaching and learning, and the Dharma. It reflects a certain evolution of the Sangha. Most importantly, it expresses the sincere aspirations of the teachers and Zen students for waking up together, all beings, and the timeless thread that connects us directly to the Buddha through all the Zen ancestors.
A deeper mystery. Meanwhile, I continued my nearly full-time work as a priest at AZC, teaching classes, welcoming guests, sitting zazen at every opportunity, meeting in Dokusan with the teacher, with Flint. But it was becoming more difficult with the teacher who had expected me to leave my faculty position and become a full-time resident. I was incredulous. I have over $100,000 in education loans for my son. How is that ever going to be paid back? But she couldn't comprehend that. And under her leadership, conditions with the residents and Sangha were deteriorating. She had asked me to develop a study center separate from AZC, but affiliated with it. Flint and I worked together, excited about this project. We surveyed members and former members about what they would hope to study. We spent a day with a friend of Flint's who was a high-level organizational consultant. And we were excited to share with the AZC teacher the evolving plans. We were all energized. We didn't know that she was actually becoming worried about this development, and several of the other priests stoked her fears.
There was a meeting of the priests with the teacher while I was out of town at a conference. Flint was away too. The next day, one of the priests emailed me about the meeting in which the teacher described the work we'd done on the study center project as a palace coup. I was stunned. I forwarded that email to the teacher with this note: goodbye and good luck. It was December 7th, 2006. It was a great shock to my system, but a necessary move. I was suddenly outside of a beautiful world I had inhabited for 5 years, working with heart and soul, mind and body, with a profound sense of meaning and purpose. I had trained there and ordained there. I had loved wearing my priest robes, leading service, teaching classes, welcoming people in the foyer. I loved sesshins with their formal robes and oryoki meals, sitting zazen together in the zendo, hosting the guest teachers from SFZC, the formal ceremonies. I loved my spiritual friends there. And then Melen, you want to read this? The devastation?
Okay. The devastation of losing the Zen Center as a home of practice is hard to express. I really believe that in this 2,500 years old tradition, I have found a place of belonging, a place where I could be at home the rest of my life. I don't know what I feel now. I can't really blame Buddhism for the mess at AZZ, but it is disorienting. I can focus on ordinary mind and put all my energies there. But it is different in some ways for two reasons. It does not follow the traditional Buddhist forms, and also I am one who started it and leads it. It is not like belonging to something bigger and more lasting, something timeless. I know this is not really true. I just can't get past it somehow. From my journal, January 1st, 2007.
What is that house?
That's the Berry Center. That's the library of the Berry Center. That's where we were meeting with Musang.
I see.
Most of all, I loved working with Flint to nurture the Sangha, learning together, teaching, and sharing our ideas and practice. Suddenly, all of that precious world was gone. All I had left, as predicted, was my tiny Sunday morning Sangha and an empty zendo with 6 sitting cushions. No robes, no service, no classes, sessions, or daily zazen with Sangha. I sat alone in my empty house, contemplating this upheaval of my life, the catastrophic implosion of my spiritual journey. I missed my dear teaching partners so much. I missed the joyful synergy that we had working and learning together. Still, I felt liberated in some strange way. Meeting Flint for lunch one day, I said, I thought I had lost the mystery when I left that whole world at AZC. Now I see that it's like I was in a bad movie about the mystery. I stepped out of the theater into the real mystery.
So how much longer did he stay there after you left?
6 months, he really tried.
Tried to put it back together, kind of?
He tried to hold it together. Yeah, it wasn't going to work. I thought they would, fall all over him trying to ensure that he didn't leave, but it was really strange. Anyway,
Okay. Flea Market of the Mind. I like that title. Sometimes Zazen is comical. Sitting in deep meditation one morning, I was transported to a flea market, so vast it stretched beyond the horizon. It was filled with folding tables as far as the eye could see, each laden with a random assortment of items. I entered with a guide who explained it to me. These were all the things you've ever wanted. We strode down the aisles, browsing the tables. There were the books and the theories I used in my dissertation, a set of shower curtain rings, a pair of shoes, an electric fence charger from the Sears catalog. I pined for it when I was 9 and longed for a horse. There were chairs, sofas, books, record albums, dinnerware, paintings, a sweater, a complete jumble of things. So many things. Just walking by the tables was exhausting. You can bring back whatever you want, my guide said helpfully. I don't want anything from here, I responded. I gazed out at the vast acres of tables and said, I'm done. I want to go home. As we were leaving, we passed a huge cage with a live wolverine in it, snarling and growling at us. As I looked curiously at it, the guide said, Oh, you don't want to let that out. Those are your feelings about your mother.
Well, there's a space, Peg, I don't know,
where?
at
What
the
do you mean?
bottom, mother period
Yeah,
space quote.
yeah, I'll fix that.
But I don't need actually, there's a space before the I, and I don't need anything. Sorry.
Yeah, you got a good eye. You always catch these things.
I don't need anything from here. I would leave everything here, the valleys, the hills, the paths, and the jaybirds from the gardens. I would leave here the petcocks and the padres, heaven and earth, spring and fall. I would leave here the exit routes, the evenings in the kitchen, the last amorous gaze, and all the city-bound directions that make you shudder. I would leave here the thick twilight falling upon the land, gravity, hope, enchantment, and tranquility. I would leave here those beloved and those close to me, everything that touched me, everything that shocked me, fascinated and lifted me. I would leave here the noble, the benevolent, the pleasant, and the demonically beautiful. I would leave here the budding sprout, every birth and existence. I would leave here incantation, enigma, distances, inexhaustibility, and the intoxication of eternity. For here I would leave the earth and these stars because I would take nothing with me from here because I've looked into what's coming and I don't need anything from here. Laszlo Krasnog,
Okay.
translated from the Hungarian by Adelie
Well,
Mulsit. Right? Mulsit?
Balls it, yeah.
Hmm.
I really like this sort of daydreams that are narrated. And I have a question for the last session. So when you were in the monastery, you heard a voice that said, "This is not your path." Was this like this? Like you heard that voice?
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
thank you. Reunion. Meanwhile, I had assumed things could improve for Flint at ACC with me gone. Surely the teacher could appreciate him more and celebrate his marvelous teaching gifts with me out of the way. But it was not paying out that way. It grew more and more difficult for him to see his clients in the little house across the street. And now he was also trying to do damage control with Sangha members alone. He was more and more unhappy.
I couldn't stand this. Finally, I said, look, why don't you come to my place? I'll build a little house in back that you can use as an office and you can teach here. You can see your clients in the study while I'm on campus all day until the new place is finished. But he was not ready. It would be a heartrending decision to leave AZC, the Sangha he had founded. All of his friends, family, and clients associated him with it. Because of him, major donors had contributed huge resources to found AZC, to provide its home. In the country, an enormous, beautifully constructed Buddha barn had been built for his ordination ceremony. In the community, he was well known as the founder of AZC. Leaving would be a terrible blow, not merely for him, but for all of these people, a humiliating failure. But gradually he could see it was inevitable. One morning he came into his office there to find that a burner on the gas stove had been burning all weekend. Another day he arrived to find a homeless man sleeping in his office. And then yet another day he found people measuring his office when he came in. I said, joking, look, I tried moving in with your family. It didn't work out. Too much craziness. Maybe you should try moving in with my family. Every original Sangha member at AZC, all of his followers, had left. Years later, Flint was at lunch with one of them who said, why did you leave us? Oh, that's right. You didn't leave us. We left you.
June 30th, 2007, 6 months after I had left AZC, Flint joined me at Ordinary Mind, seeing clients in the study, holding inquiry on Tuesdays, and offering practice discussion while we planned the design and building of the little house and back that was to become his office. We had become fully liberated. Ooh, liberating intimacy. For the mind in harmony with the Tao, all selfishness disappears, with not even a trace of self-doubt. You can trust the universe completely. All at once, you are free, with nothing left to hold on to. All is empty, brilliant, perfect in its own being. Shin Shin Ming.
We began talking about how we wanted to teach in a fresh perspective we were calling relational Zen. It would incorporate some of the psychological concepts we had studied, Hakomi, internal family systems, spiral dynamics, but it would have its deep foundation in Zen teachings and practice. Still, there was my question: would our focus on relational practice in addition to meditation lead us and our Sangha astray from the authentic teachings and practice of Zen? Would it devolve into Zen light, seen as superficial, New Age? The traditional institution of Zen stretched back over 700 years in Japan and even beyond that, to the origins of Chan in China in the 5th or 6th century CE. We Americans were upstarts. Who were we to meddle with tradition?
Flint said he had a book of his shelf that might have some bearing on this question, and he hadn't read it yet. He bought it from his office, Liberating Intimacy by Peter Hershock. If you haven't read it, you should. I opened it and began reading out loud from the introduction. It was a revelation. It's a scholarly history of Chan Zen Buddhism's origins in China. In it, Hershock focuses on a radical rethinking of Zen history. Zen as not merely the practice of seated meditation, but of direct encounter, the liberating potential of relationship. It was a distinctly Chinese contribution to Buddhist teachings.
So maybe I'll read this Suzuki quote here. You can take this human nature of yours into consideration when you seek to understand reality. But only by the actual practice of Zen can you experience reality directly and understand in their true sense the various statements made by your teacher or by Buddha. In a strict sense, it is not possible to speak about reality. Nevertheless, if you are a Zen student, you have to understand it directly through your master's words. Your master's direct statement may not be only in words. His behavior is likewise his way of expressing himself. In Zen, we put emphasis on demeanor or behavior. By behavior, we do not mean a particular way that you ought to behave, but rather the natural expression of yourself. Yeah, go up to the bottom of that page then. There we go.
Okay. Chan was revolutionary in not centering on sutra study or lectures by Buddhist teachers or even solitary meditation. It was based on direct experience in this very moment, and it was most alive in the encounter. The Chan student challenging a teacher, two masters meeting on a road, an old woman selling rice cakes asking a traveling scholar the question that stumps him. The koan collections reflect the immediacy of such encounters, their potential for awakening right in this very moment. We read Hershock's illuminating book together over several weeks, captivated by its brilliant insights and elegant prose. Our focus on relational Zen was not, to our relief, some modern whim diluting traditional Zen. It was a return to Zen's original expression, the realization that we wake up in relating with the master, with an old woman at a well, with a peach tree in full bloom. In the immediacy of direct encounter, without filters, in the open, spacious place cultivated in meditation, we are not two. This surprising book, at precisely the right time, gave us confidence that our instincts and teaching methods were actually true to the original teachings of Zen. How had it ever been turned into some solitary quest and isolating practice?
I'm just thinking about that last sentence. Do you have an idea, Peg?
What?
Do you have an idea how it turned into the solitary quest?
I don't know. I think that may be sort of, I don't know. I don't know whether it's because of the sort of individualism of our country or whether it was that way in Japan. It seems like it was kind of that way in Japan. There's not a lot in the Zen literature about Sangha.
But there's not the concept in Japan of the individual like we have.
No, not
Solitary, but not individual like the individual is, yeah, right?
right. Yeah.
I said to Flint, from here, am I? Yes, mine. I said to Flint, from here on, we will have to grow each other. There are no teachers for this way. In fact, some years later, we invited Peter Hershog to Appamada to teach a one-day workshop. He admired what we were doing with the Sangha and told us, you are putting into practice what I can only write about. But there were some clouds on the horizon. Joko had publicly disavowed two of her Dharma errors. In response, some of her other Dharma errors wrote a letter strongly and disrespectfully, in my view, criticizing Joko. The ordinary mind school was coming apart.
Is this the right page?
Yeah, do with the right hand. You can read the right hand page. Yeah.
Okay. Of the Enlightenment stories collected in the various anthologies of Chan biographies, the majority of them pivot on a crucial crisis-resolving communicative encounter. That is, enlightenment most frequently manifests not while sitting alone in the forest or meditation hall, but while conversing in the interview room, in front of the assembly, in the Dharma hall, in the kitchen, or the dirt path leading to the monastery's field. Anywhere that master and student enter unpredictable and lively relation with one another. In short, Chan enlightenment is characteristically realized in the unprecedented conduct, the spontaneous leading together of student and master.
Maybe the solitary practice came from people realizing how difficult an encounter is.
Well, yeah, it's
Fleeing from it.
it has to be both of those things. It has to be sitting meditation and encounter. Like it's got to be both of those things. If you don't have a foundation in sitting practice, the encounter can't be realized, right? You're going to be having your habitual kinds of conversations and not something that is unprecedented.
Noise.
Yeah,
Noise.
yeah. So that's chapter 9. Do
I
we
don't
want
know if you want to use this title.
what?
I don't know if you want to use the title for the photo because that's the title for the book, about Richard Baker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We could change that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Oh, I can't move it because this is also the end of the section.
It's the end of this, yeah. It's the end of this section. So I think we should stop there. And
Sure.
because we're close to 8 o'clock, we could do some writing and discussing. Um, if you want to do that, then we can start next time with chapter 10.
Okay. So
Let's go.
right until 8:12. No,
Something like whatever. Yeah.
what do we do? 15 minutes. So 8:17.
No,
Yeah.
that's more. Are you trying to do math?
Well, a long day.
Let's do it until 8:15. Let's write till 8:15.
Okay.
That's a number that we can all remember, right?
23 minutes. Okay. But that's fine. Or 22. Okay.
That photo of you on the screen.
Oh, thanks.
Really lovely.
I'm not one who likes to have my picture taken. Of all the tens of thousands of pictures I've taken, I prefer being on the other end of the camera. But there's a famous photographer. He did a lot in New York City, and he moved to Kauai a few years back. And he asked, could he take my picture? And I mean, he's famous for pictures of Miles Davis, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, just tons of celebrities from New York town. And I said, well, okay. And he literally clicked the shutter 3 times and said, we're done. And that
Wow.
was what came out of that. I was so amazed. He just made me take my glasses off and said, look at me, and boom.
It's just incredible.
Oh yeah, I was amazed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think portraits are hard.
Well, no, you don't have to think they are hard. They are hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of my son's photographic specialties.
Mm,
Yeah, he's got a gift. He always
yeah.
makes people look almost luminous. I don't know, it's in the eye, not everybody can do it.
Oh, definitely not. And to establish that rapport in such an isolated, momentary situation, that's a real skill.
Yeah, it's fun to see. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for reading tonight. I so appreciate it. Do you want to share anything you wrote?
Well, this was quite, what's the word? Quite illuminating. Um, there's a lot of the, obviously, of the history of Appamada that I don't know, I wouldn't know. And even having, been dealing with Flint over the years, there's a lot of stuff he obviously hasn't talked about.
Hmm.
And for good reason, I imagine. So this is very illuminating, and it was very comforting, if that's the right word, very reassuring to see how human all of this is, how very much human this can be, because a lot of times people are like, oh, well, this one's enlightened, or this one has a saintly aspect, or this journey to sainthood, and you're going to be all this different non-human thing. But this is so beautifully human and reassuring as to what happens with the ordinary, um, and enlightened behavior. That's the thing that keeps popping up for me, instead of enlightenment and the light bulb over your back of your head and all of that stuff, and being trapped by being a saint. But the enlightened behavior is so prevalent and it's understated, but at the same time, it's out there. And being as you are is so vital to being. Um, So it's great to see that, and it's great to see the ones who you see as your teachers, as human beings, as a you. You know, there's a mirror in there. And was it last time we were reading? And somebody, I think they said it was Suzuki Roshi, who said, "You think of me as a teacher because I'm wearing these robes, but you could wear the robe too."
Mhm.
Um, and all of that was in there, and that being open. This was a great example and a great telling of being open. And I had a note in here somewhere. Being dedicated to being open and being consistent with your practice. And what I'm reading here is that you guys had trust, and the way you exhibited that trust was by doing. Um, and sometimes having trust by doing might be more significant than simply having faith and hope. Although those things have their place too, I don't want to discount that.
Yeah.
Um, but the trust in doing is quite amazing and quite evident in here. And it's the story made me smile more than twice tonight. So thank you.
I'm really glad to hear that because I can't be inside other people's heads when they're reading it. I know what my intention is, but I have no idea how other people are feeling about it. So that's very, very helpful to hear. I'm so I'm so glad that it's striking you that way. You're muted. Kim.
I mentioned to you the other day that we've been reading Circle of the Way, and what occurred over and over and over and over again in Buddhism.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to look at that whole long history and see how often that happens.
So I wrote something. Someone said to me about all the stuff I do. This was today. They said it is, but you like to do that, like cleaning the burnt incense from two bowls the Cheaton left. I offered because I knew she was late to work, but hearing you like to do that struck me as something not in my mind. I do like to do things for others, and I do like to see the altar ready for another day. I like discerning the Dharma, discussing the Dharma with others. So why did "but you like to do that" strike me as odd? It isn't like eating a piece of pie. I don't wake up and go to the Zendo because I like to do that. I do it because I don't know. It just seems that's what's needed. So I like to do what's, do I like to do what's needed? Do I say to myself, oh boy, I get to go out in the cold and turn on the lights and wait for people to come. Do I like that? It's not that I dislike it, but it just seems that it is something that needs to be done and something that I can do. Kind of like the movie of the guy in Japan who cleaned toilets. He was called to do this work and he did it well, but I don't think he liked or disliked the work. It was his job, and it was a job that needed to be done. Maybe liking it is overrated. Maybe that isn't the motivation for the Bodhisattva. There was a book and movie, The Magnificent Obsession, about a man trying to make up for his errors. He was driven, not doing things because he liked doing them, but doing them to try to set things right. Challenges are fun and also something exasperating. There is joy when I can get something done, but the joy was not enough to motivate me to do it.
So it's your koan, right? Why what the temple bell rings? Why do you put on your robes? Yeah, it's that koan.
The
And
world,
the
the,
trick in it,
the first line is the world is vast and wide.
yeah, the trick in it is that it's not a why question.
You
There's
keep
not really,
saying
there's
that.
what?
You've said that many times.
I've said that many times because people are always asking the wrong question. It's not a why question.
I
They
like
can't,
that.
can't be answered that way. Yeah, Malen.
So something that relates, I asked, well, I really enjoyed the last few chapters in this one because like the story is evolving.
Hmm.
And so I asked for the first time to ChatGPT, uh, what's the spiritual path? Thinking in your book, because I have had many questions to do, but I haven't done them to ChatGPT.
Mhm.
And the first paragraph, it says, a spiritual path is essentially a journey or approach that someone takes to explore and develop the inner self, connection to something greater than themselves, whether that's a higher power, the universe, or simply the essence of life, and their sense of purpose or meaning. It's personal, and different people might define it in various ways depending on the beliefs, experiences, and goals. And it goes on. And then I just wrote, above, there's a great sky, a great sky, a great sky. And that's it.
Boundlessness. Lovely.
So is why not a good question because it's unanswerable?
Yes, I mean, if somebody asks you, why did you fall in love with Linda? It's the wrong question, right? It can't really be answered with reasons.
They're after the fact and they're
Right, right. So, so things like that that involve pure presence, there isn't a why that can be asked about them. You know, why do you take photos, Ed? You know, like there isn't, you can't really answer that kind of question.
Not satisfactorily, not sufficiently.
why did
What?
you why did you make that decision to make that?
Yeah, if somebody asked you, um, can you give a little bit of reflection about what making photos is for you, what that feels like for you? You might be able to say some things about that. But the why questions always are come out of a kind of egoic space.
See,
So
that's the difference. The whys come out of an egoic space.
yeah.
And I did that 11-day retreat about photography as a spiritual practice over
Mhm.
on Molokai. And it did involve not being in that egoic space.
And you can tell there's a difference when there's no I doing it.
Hmm.
It has a kind of effortless effort quality to it. Yeah.
Also, in I'm reading this or listening to the book, the Soul of Money.
Oh, I love her.
It's
I
con-
yeah,
it's connected to that course,
yeah. I
and this I just went through yesterday. It was really powerful. The um, the bit about Mother Teresa, the
mm,
beautiful story when she goes to visit Mother Teresa, and there's one point where there's these really wealthy couple, and they turn Mother Teresa's head for a photo or something, and the author thinks it's so terrible what she's doing, and then finally a few weeks later she realizes Mother Teresa realizes everyone is a child of God, and that was beautiful. And she had no negative feelings toward this couple. The guy had gold rings on all his fingers. It was the woman. So
Yeah, she's,
you read the book or heard it or?
I had a conference with her at Upaya.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so of course I had read the book before I went, but she's a brilliant speaker and really, really wonderful person. And she does fundraising, talks about the sacred work of helping people um, transmit resources uh, away from things that they don't want and towards things they do want,
Hmm.
like preserving the Amazon rainforest, you know. So she said this is a sacred work of helping people discover what they really want and how they want their resources to go. And
Mother Teresa recognized that in her immediately.
yeah, yeah, she's a really remarkable woman. Yeah. And I love that book. It's terrific.
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. So we're at the end of our time. Yeah. Thank you so much for reading with me. It's so wonderful for me to hear it in different voices and to see, you know, what sounds like it's rolling along okay and where there seems to be, you know, difficulties or whatever. But it so far seems like it's clear enough. Like you guys are getting it. Not, doesn't seem to be stopping anybody. So thank you so much.
And thank you.